To start it off, I guess, we are going to be talking about Business Operations Center. Operations Center is, yes, it is a very good data tool to maintain your data, make sure it's all organized and so on. But it is the way John Deere is going with autonomy, it is kind of the tool where we're going to have to run everything through it. So if you want to use your advanced guidance solutions, AutoPath. So AutoPath is where you mark out each and every row in the fields. There's no more counting guess rows. Don't have to mismatch, or you can mix and match headers and so on. Uh, turn automation, turning around at the end of the field, raise and lower the tool, do all sorts of different functions on the tractor. What Operation Center is getting to is it's going to be the thing that once you prep ahead of time, it's going to make your life easier with these advanced guidance solutions. So it's a very big tool. It isn't just data. It's the way John Deere's going. I know autonomy, not everybody thinks I'll have an autonomous tractor, but there's a lot of building blocks that guys use that they don't realize that are the building blocks to autonomy. So with that being said, we'll get started and dig into it. Okay, so what we'll be going over today. Account creation and validation. So if you don't have an account, how to create it, validate it, and get logged in, create an organization, set up equipment lists, create field names, add products, and make setup files for spring 2022s. We'll get into it. So as you can see over on the presentation here, you can go to myjohndeere.deere.com, and this will be your main login page. If you already have a My John Deere financial account, stellar support for your precision ag products, there's a good chance you have a login, whether you know it or not, or not necessarily a login, but a username. So if you don't know your username, give any of your local IS consultants a call. So either me, Dale, Dave, Chris, or Eric, and we'd be glad to help you out, get you a username if you have one. If not, you can see at the bottom of the screen, it says create new account. You click on that and it'll bring you into creating a new account. So this is the page you will see once you start creating an account. You can see it asks for a username, first name, last name, company's optional. So fill out everything with a red asterisk next to it. And once you get to the end, it'll say have a checkbox. Click accept on that and hit continue. So you will notice it doesn't ask you for a password at this time. It'll send out a validation email to the email you choose, and then you'll have to go in your email to our next spot, where I'm going to be going to now. So this is what you will see once you are in the email. So it'll ask you, you can either click on the link or hit the yellow validate profile. So what that'll do is it'll bring you in, and you can see it'll ask you for a password, and to confirm it, it has some criteria for the password. One alphabet, one number, and 10 to 30 characters. So you don't have to worry about any special symbols or anything like that. Then it's also going to ask you for a challenge question. I like to keep it something simple. They have things like, what was your mom's maiden name, your favorite food, where were you born, favorite sports team, so on. So something, if you ever need to go in and recover your password because you forgot it, it'll be asking you the question. So something that you know off the top of your head. So I like to keep it simple. Then once again, just like before, we have an I agree to terms of use and privacy at the bottom. Make sure you hit that checkbox before you start. So once you get into myjohndeere.com, you can see there's my applications. That will be over on the left-hand side of your screen. So you can see if you had any John Deere financial, you can go in and view it there. Parts, stellar support, for all your precision ag products, Operations Center, JD Link, and so on. But today we will be using Operations Center. Okay, so if it is your first time in Operations Center, it will ask you to create an organization. An organization is going to be the name that it shows your farm as underneath Operations Center. So if you look here, it says you have a few different things to choose from, either a commercial organization or a personal. Commercial is defined as a business and not solely owned by an individual or sole proprietor, or a personal is a single person owns the farms. Type in your organization name, legal name, address, and it'll bring you right through it. so you can create your organization and get started. So this is the home screen for Operations Center. You can see we have a quick link for machine list and field list over on the right, and now I will start walking you guys through it. Okay. So as I said earlier, we have a machine list over here on the left. You can see we have a bunch of stuff already added in. And we have our field list here. So this is where you'd find all your fields. You can see our list is kind of messy, but this is where you'd find all your fields and boundaries and so on as a quick link. If not, you can go into your setup tab. There's connections. So all of your different third-party companies, soil sampling, agronomists, climate, all sorts of different stuff that you can make connections so data will flow seamlessly between the two. There's a whole bunch of lists in there, so you can choose which ones you want to connect to. You have geofences and curfews, land, so that would be where you manage your fields, boundaries, and tracks, and flags, like it says. It's where we're going to be in to build our fields, our field names, our boundaries, and so on. Products, this is where we'll go to add in varieties, chemicals, tank mixes. Setup file creator. So with those who don't know what a setup file is once you have all your data in Operations Center or all your field names and machines, you can create a file and send it to your tractor or combine, whatever your piece of machinery is, and have it all organized so you're not trying to type things in when you get to the field. It's all the same on every screens. You just hit the drop down and have a pre-selected thing that's tailored to your needs. So one thing to note is Operations Center is compatible with all different makes of machineries, so you can upload data from your Pro 700Ks, 2020 precision monitors, all sorts of different stuff. There's a list in here, so you can go in and look. But it isn't just John Deere. But one thing to note, when we do build a setup file, it is only for John Deere displays. So you can only put the field names on a John Deere display, but you can take all the data you want off of all different colors of displays out there. So you're not limited to just John Deere. It makes quite the versatile platform. We have team, so manage staff, operators, and partners. So what we can do is you can label people as staff or operators or partners. So if you had a bunch of hired hands, you can give them select permissions where they can view where the fields are and where the equipment is, but maybe not dig so far into the data, but they can see locations and everything, so that you can tell them, go to this field, they can hit directions, and so on. And then we also have terminals. So terminals would be like, if you can see this tractor over here on the right, all tractors and combines starting in 2012 had a JD Link terminal in them. They would have probably started out as 2G, went up to 3G, and we're now currently at 4G, so all 2 and 3G terminals no longer work, but the subscription is now free. Those that used to have it before knew that JD Link came at a price, a yearly subscription. John Deere got rid of that this year. So now we have free JD Link. You just have to go and turn it on. Some of the benefits you get with JD Link, you get service alerts sent to your phone, and if you're partnered with True North Equipment, it will send it back to your service department in your store. So they will give you different codes with severity levels, green, yellow, and red. Obviously, green being minor, just letting you know, yellow moderate, red is extreme. Hey, stop, check this out. They will also give you locations. So if you click on it, this one here, you can see we have directions. So this is really handy for, say, a new employee doesn't know where everything is, can hit directions and so on. So you can just keep track of everything. It also comes with remote display access. So what that is you can have, if you call a John Deere dealer and you're trying to explain something on your screen, and we all know how it goes. One person describes one thing one way and the other person's seeing the other. So it takes the guess out of it. Your John Deere dealer, or you, if you have an employee that doesn't know what they're touching, you can pull up your screen on your phone, on your laptop, iPad, anything, and see what they are looking at. Now, you can't press any buttons, but at least you're not getting mixed up to the point where you're frustrated about it. So it's a very handy tool to have, and you don't have to be worried about people just logging in and watching you. It asks when you log in, it says, hey, Alan Emick from True North Equipment is asking to view your screen. Do you give him permission to accept or decline? So it's not like anybody can just log in and look at what you're doing at any moment. So, but to get back to that, we have a plan tab at the top of our screen. So we have Agrian Prescription Creator, so you can create all sorts of different prescriptions for your needs. Crop Planner, another spot where you can plan seasonal crops. Maintenance, so you can set up maintenance reports for different pieces of equipment. If they are JD Link capable, it will send over that maintenance report to the tractors, so it'll pop up on your screen when you hit those maintenance intervals. And then we have Work Planner. Work Planner is new this year for Gen 4s, and Eric will be going over it in our second virtual class today, so stay tuned and watch that. It's pretty cool to see. Okay, now we have our Analyze tab at the top. Analyze is a good place to print PDF reports. I have a lot of guys that do a lot of custom spraying for billing. They print it out and just say, hey, this is what I put down for chemicals. This is the acres I covered. It's a good way if you document everything right in your display. You will also have, or you'll have good PDF reports to print out for years of records or for printing out for billing. So it's awful handy to have. We have Field Analyzer. That's where we view all of our coverage maps, our yield maps, our planting maps, our application for spraying. We have Machine Analyzer. Machine Analyzer, you can go in and look at, say, throughput to the combine. So this was big with our X9 demos this year. We would put the X9 out in the field with maybe a couple 780s, 680s, and if they were JD Link capable, we could compare wirelessly after the fact of how much throughput they had, how much fuel usage. So I know one customer realized that he let his tractor idle for, it was almost 40 hours one year, and just an hour or two here and there, and all of a sudden he's got 40, 50 extra hours on a machine and burnt how much more fuel. So it's a good way to try to keep track of things, save a little money here and there. So then we also have machine reports, so you can create and manage fuel utilization and maintenance reports. So it's just a way to keep everything organized from all those maintenance and machine analyzer stuff. Underneath the More tab, we have Apex Backup Utilities. So if you use John Deere's previous farm management system, Apex, this is a way you can back up your Apex data into Operations Center to get started. It does take a while, so don't think it isn't working if it takes a little while. So there's a lot of data to back up. We have Bulk Boundary Creator. The only time I would use this is if you have a screen that you know has perfect boundaries or perfect coverage, and you want to create boundaries quick. That's when you would go into that. If you start uploading 3-4 different displays and you have little blimps of tillage coverage here and there, you're going to have about 10-15 boundaries in a field, and it's going to take a lot of time to delete them all. So make sure if you're going to use that tool, you have a very good display with all the proper coverage on it and nothing extra. Files, this will be where you can go in and see all the documentation and data that's been uploaded or our setup files that are processing. Data Manager, which I will go over here in a bit. That is the tool we use to upload John Deere software in and out of Operations Center. There is another way for your red equipment, or not necessarily red, but aftermarket or third-party equipment. John Deere Software Manager, this is where you'd find all of your software updates for your Gen 4 display. And here's your remote display access report. So so you can view how much time you used remote display access throughout the year. Okay, but to get started, now we've kind of seen the whole layout of Operations Center. We're gonna get started into building some machines. So the quick way to do this is hit your equipment tab over on the left, hit add, and now you can see we can add equipment. So if you have a piece of John Deere equipment and you know the serial number, you can type it in and search it, and it will add all of your equipment, or the name, make, model, equipment type, and offsets. If you do not, you can simply type it in. So we will do a 9870 STS. Equipment make, John Deere. You can see there's all sorts of different competitor companies in here, so you're not limited to just John Deere. Then we have machine and implement over on the left. So it's hard to tell, but neither one of these is highlighted, and it always defaults to machine first. So if you're looking for an implement, you got to make sure you click implement before you can see anything implement. So even though it isn't highlighted, it does take into account which one you've clicked last. So we'll go to combine. We'll choose our model. Obviously they have a whole bunch of pre-populated stuff here, but it is not fun to search for. So we just type it in, makes it a lot easier. And then if you have a different color piece of equipment, and just for the little icon it shows up, so you can make a red tractor red and black or red and gray, or different tillage tools, different colors. So that is kind of a neat little feature to have. So when you're looking at the map, they aren't just all green tractors. So once we get into there, you can hit add. Okay. So this is what you see right after you add it. Obviously, if you have your offsets already, if you go around and take pictures of all your offsets in your display, you can add them in here. If you don't have them at the time, you can just hit OK. We'll go back over here to Combine and hit 9870 STS. And it'll pop up and we can hit Edit. So here is where we could add in a serial number if we didn't know it at the time. Serial numbers are very handy to have in here, especially when you're at the parts counter. You can pull it up on your My Operations app on your phone, look at it. Oh, there's my serial number split. I'm trying to, instead of keeping a list in your wallet, trying to memorize which combine is what serial number, what tractor is this. It's all on your phone, so you can pull it up quick, simple, easy, and can continue on with the day. We also have offsets, so we can edit all of these. We can choose connection type, non-steering axle, GPS location, all the different offsets is a good thing to notice. So one thing to note, if you have a combine, I used to be a pretty big combine guru, so I always mention this. If you have 50 series or no 60 series or older, if you don't look, the cap is offset just a little bit, so make sure your offset is in there for the globe. Make sure it's on, or else you're going to be tracking off. You can see we also have turning radius and sensitivity. It's very handy to have offsets in, especially when you create a setup file, so it's all there. I stress this a lot with scrapers, guys that run scrapers in the fall. We measure them out. First thing I do is I put them in Operations Center for them, so when they create a setup file the next year and their scrapers in there, they have all the measurements there, and you're not spending over an hour measuring when you get going, so you can take off, make sure it's on, and go. So it's a lot less downtime when you get in the field. Okay, so now we can see we've seen where we can edit all of our offsets. So that's kind of the base stuff you can edit after the fact since you've added it to it. So noting one thing, obviously a 9870 is pre-2012, so it didn't come with the JD Link terminal. If we wanted to add one after the fact, which we are able to do, talk to your local IS consultant, and he can help you out with it if you want. To attach a JD Link terminal to a machine, you need to have the equipment pins. So that is another reason why to have the serial number in there. All right, so we will get going now with fields. So once again, go to the quick link, or you could hit the drop down and go to land. We'll go to the little quick tab and hit add once again. Okay, once it loads up here. Okay, so we'll zoom into our impact center over here. So once you get in here and you haven't added any fields or anything, everything with land, products and so on, it's the big yellow add button in the upper right corner here that I'm circling. So you hit add. One thing to note, before you can create a boundary, you have to have a field name, so you can't create the field name and the boundary at the same times. We'll go and select client here. Spring class, farm, impact center, field virtual class. One thing here too, you notice we can add a base station. You cannot do that through Operations Center, but if you have a Gen 4 display, you can go in underneath your field tab. You'll see at the bottom there will be a yellow button, and you can put add base stations. So you can have base stations set to each field for operators coming in the future after you if you're not the same guy. One reason to have that is repeatability. So if you come in plant on one tower and say there's another tower that's the equal distance away and you have another guy comes in to spray and he goes to the other tower, there is a chance it could drift a little bit. So that is one reason to have it. It's a very handy tool to have. So once you add them into your display for each field, then you'll have to manually export the data from your Gen 4 display and upload it to Operations Center manually. So it will not automatically transfer through JD Link. So that is one thing to note. So now we can hit save. It'll pull up all of our info over here on the left. So now we can go to boundaries and add a boundary. You can see it's going to be draw newer from a previous operation. If you know you have a very good coverage map, so a lot of times it's seeding or planting, there's no jagged edges like a sprayer, you can get a lot of sway at the end of your boom. So if you have a nice seeding map, you can do from a previous operation and it'll draw a border all the way around your coverage from that year. One thing to note when doing boundaries is it is best to drive them with RTK or SF3 to get as close as possible, because if you start mapping them out by hand, there's a lot of shadows on trees, leaf cover, so on. So you will notice they are fairly off. So with all the advanced guided solutions coming down the road, it's good to have as accurate of boundaries as possible. So, but for today's purposes, we will hit draw new. Okay, so you can see I have all these different icons over on the right. So your select points is if you want to delete a bunch of points, draw a polygon, which is our most common used tool. Circle, if you want to do like pivots, or if you had a perfect square for a field. So we'll get started in this one here. So we'll go over here with this polygon. You can see my cursor turns to a little cross. You zoom in and you drop a point where you want it to be. And now you're drawing a line. So you can drop points along the way. Go to a corner. No, this isn't around the field boundary, but just for class purposes. Okay, so one thing we can do is I'll show you, I'm going to put this cluster of stuff in here just to show you the select points feature. So you can see we have our boundary here, but now we got this chunk that's all messed up. We can hit select points, kind of draw a circle around it that we want out, and hit the trash can, and it'll even that out. So that is what that select points tool is for. So it's awful handy. If you want to come in and edit boundaries at any point, say you want to move it, you can only move it at the points that are white. So you can see it only pivots there, but I want this to move up here. We click on that, move it over, click on that, move it over, and you can do it as many times as you want. You just got to click in between the dots. So you can see we kind of got a curved edge to it now. Okay, so what we'll name that is boundary name. Undrawn exterior. And it is an active boundary. So if you choose that it's an inactive boundary, it will not show up in your setup file to be uploaded to your display. So that is one thing to know. We'll hit save. So now what we want to do, so say we have a obstacle in the middle of the field, a rock pile, a telephone pole, a waterway. We'll use this dirt patch as an example. So you want to draw a boundary or an interior boundary around it. And just around it. You can see down here now it popped up shape 2. We'll make that an interior boundary. So if it's a passable boundary, which this is good for, like down south, there's a lot of waterways, grass waterways. So for your section control to shut it off, it will it'll shut off your section control, but it'll let you drive past it. So that is one thing to have, so you don't kill your grass waterways. If you were to make it a non-passable, it would turn purple here, as you saw. That would, once again, also shut off your section control. It'll warn you to turn. If you have turn automation running, it will try turn you for that. So, and with autonomy coming down the road, the tractor will realize I can't make it past this, so it'll all pop up and ask you what you want to do on your phone. So, but we'll make it a passable boundary for today's example. Hit save. So here you can see we have 74.81 acres. So you can kind of see your totals. It is pretty fun to see if we were to drive the same boundary at how different the acreage count would be. So we did do it on a test farm up in Kennedy. I'm sure Eric will go over it here later this morning. It was between our seeding coverage map and our our drawn with, or it was a driven boundary with RTK on a pickup. There's almost an acre difference, so there was a big difference on it. Okay, so now we got fields done. We will go into products. So benefits of having products is we can add them all in. Once again, ease of downtime, you're not typing in, or use of time, not typing in different varieties, chemicals. When you get to the field, everything's written in the way it should be, so you can just hit a drop down list, keep everything organized nicely so you don't have 4 different names for the same variety in a field. So what we'll do is, once again, add a product. And you can see here we have select categories. We can do chemical or variety. And we'll do chemical first. You can select the type you want. So we'll do herbicide. You can go through here and there's all sorts of different kinds. If you don't know what you're looking for, or if you can't find what you're looking for, you can hit add on the bottom. But for today's purposes, we will just search it. So let's go up to the top here. Oh, right there's a Roundup. So you can see it added it over here on the right. So every time when you add something, you aren't limited to just adding one thing, hitting next, and going back and forth. This is kind of a bank over here. You can fill up all sorts of different things. So you can put products, varieties, so on into it. So next we'll do a variety. Let's go with wheat, hard red spring. Get rid of Monsanto. Looks like we have Cutter from AgriPro, so that's what we'll choose for that. We can hit next. You can see here's a little summary of what we've added, so you can go through, double check, make sure everything's correct. Here you can select a form, dry liquid gas, make sure everything's the way you want it. We'll hit save. So here's a big list of everything we've ever added in this account. So one thing to note is, say we have something we don't use anymore. We can hit checkbox so it doesn't, and go to archive. So what that does is it puts it in our archives over here. So we don't necessarily have a big list filled up with stuff and you're trying to sort through what's what. So if you know you're not using that variety or that chemical this year, put it back in the archives and not have it clutter up your list when you're trying to look through everything, so you can keep everything organized and neat. I did forget to mention, back in land when we were creating boundaries, they have an archive feature too. So if you have, say you rented a field for a few years, you have all the data on it, and now you aren't renting it anymore, you can archive that field and it'll send it to your archives underneath land. And all of a sudden, 3 years down the road, you're renting that again. You can go back into your archives, check it, make it available again. So you have all of your past data from that field, so you kind of knew a little refresher on how everything went if you didn't quite remember. So you're just because you put something in the archive, it's not gone. You can go back and get it. So archive is just a nice feature to get rid of the clutter and keep everything organized for the main things you see. So we'll get over here to take mixes a little bit. You can see we have a few different ones in here. I'll just show you an example of one we built. It looks just like it when you hit add. Can add in your solution rate, your fluid ounces to the acre. You can adjust this unit too. The carrier. This also works as a very good calculator. I know we're all been doing it by hand or good enough at math, but sometimes this is handy to throw in here. So you're going to do tank volume in acres. It'll throw out how much you need instead of penciling it out. So it's an awful good thing to have. You can also add in notes at the bottom too. So very handy feature. See, there's the calculator again up there. Okay, so now that we have our products in, we can go to setup file creator. So once that loads, so benefits of setup files, having all your same field names across the farm, so you don't hop in one display. One person calls it back 40, the next one calls it mom and dad's house. You can have all sorts of, just to keep everything straight. So your field names are straight, machines are all there, varieties, so everything's all organized and you're not getting this, what should I say, mass amount of data that is just garbage. So they always preach to us, good data in is good data out. So you set up everything the way it should be on a setup file. It's should be good to go. One thing to note, if you have 2630 displays, you when you upload a setup file to your display, make sure you export the data off first. So when you plug in a USB, it'll ask you export, imports guidance lines, import data off a USB drive. Make sure you export data off of your display. Once you upload a setup file to your 2630, it overwrites everything that is already on there. So you will lose it. So that is a good thing to export it, make sure it's safe. You can put it on a hard drive if you want. So maybe a crop consultant, or you start dealing with a new crop consultant, you can just hand them the hard drive, say, here's my data from the past 6 years, instead of just having it all on the cloud. So, but definitely make sure you you export before you import your data. One other thing to note with the 2630, 2600, if you forget to add a piece of equipment or a crop type, you cannot add that in after the fact on your setup files. So you'd have to go in, create a new setup file and upload it again. So one thing I always see is come spraying time, you guys have their sprayer, they forget to put their boom in. So all of a sudden they go to GS3, put in their sprayer as their machine, go to implement, all of a sudden they don't have a boom. I actually brought this up in one of our in-person classes here the other week, and the guy said, oh man, I just sprayed my whole farm with a cultivator. So he ran into that problem too, so it's a pretty common thing. And going on with different crop types, if you don't know your varieties yet, but you're making a setup file, just make sure you have at least one random variety of that crop. So you don't necessarily need the variety, just make sure if you're planting a corn variety, you have corn, beans, wheat. So just so you don't have to go back and upload a new set of files. They realized everything with or all these problems on the 2630, and on the Gen 4s, you don't have to worry about that. You can add as you go. So one thing to note with a Gen 4, each year when you upload, one thing is export, but do a factory reset on your display. I believe Dale will go over that here in the third class today. But if you don't factory reset your display, it just puts a copy of everything on there. So when you get into the field, you'll have two guidance lines for everything. So if you have East Headland, you'll have East Headland and in parentheses 1. So your screen will get cluttered up with all sorts of random guidance lines and everything too. So that's one thing to make sure is you do a factory reset so you don't have a bunch of duplicates on your screen. But now that we've gone through all those little fun facts on the displays, we will go over how to make a setup file. So you can see we have both of our GS2 displays, our 1800 and our 2600. we have our GS3 command center, so our early 8Rs, 9Rs, that is all the small little touchscreen, or on the early ones it wasn't even touchscreen, over on the console. So you can add a setup file to there if you're running AutoTrack on that. Your GS3 2630 or your Gen 4 command center, your 4600, 4640, 4240, 4200. So today we will go with the 2630 Gen 4 because that's about the most common we have. So then we can create a file name. So for a file name, we will do virtual class. And you can see here we have create new or create from existing. If you have an existing one down here, so say you missed something, like I was talking about earlier, and you have to go back and make a new setup file, and this February 22 was the last one you made, and that's where you're missing something, you could download that and then add to it. So, but from today, we will create a new. Let's start. So if you have all of your fields in and you know exactly what you're looking for, you can hit, or you know everything's good, you can hit this little box up here to check all of them. Obviously, we're not going to check all of them today, so we're just going to go for our one we made earlier. So clients, we'll do spring class. Okay, you can see here's our virtual class and our hand-drawn exterior. So we'll click that, and we will get rid of this. So now we have our, you can see we have our 3 fields are missing, auto path, so on. We have our 1 field selected. If you are doing a source, or if you already have a source operation for AutoPath, this is where you would find it. You can filter it out here. Here's an example of what AutoPath data would look like. So you can see we have application from one of our fields last year, and we also have a seeding one down here. So if you are using a source operation, you want the most recent for that year. So either strip till, or it would be strip till for planting, but if you're going into spraying, it would be seeding. So whatever your source operation was for that year is the best one to use. Then we also have variety locator up here. Those who don't know what variety locator is, if you have all of your varieties straight and entered properly, you can choose the crop, and if it sees it has varieties associated to that field, it'll pull it up on your screen, and you will see the variety split in the field. You'll see 2 different colors on the screen, and it'll label where the varieties are at, so you know right where the split is. But now that we have our field in, we'll hit next, and you can see all of our equipment. So like I said earlier, if you're missing equipment on 2630, it's not going to be there. You can't add it. So what I preach to all my guys is just add them all, the little bit of space it takes and how big your list probably is. It's good to have all your machines and implements. So once again, get done seeding and all of a sudden you're spraying tomorrow and you don't have a sprayer in your setup file and you forget when you get out to the field, at least it's there. So see, we have everything added here. We hit next. And now we have all the different things we added in. So we can search to our Roundup original, and can't remember what the other one we added in. Oops. Sweet. And we can have cutter or linker. So we'll throw them both in. And then if you want a tank mix that you created, we'll throw that in with it. And if you notice down here, if you forget and you remember at the last second, just hit add a tank mix, add a product, add equipment, and it'll just pull it up for you so you can add it at the last second before you go in. So here you can add operators if you want. It's not required, but it is a feature to have. We'll hit True North Equipment. And now we have our summary. So we can see we have our display type, the file name, fields, boundaries, no guidance lines, flags, AutoPath, variety locator, all of our machines, our products, and our operators. So once we do that, we can hit create file. So I talked about JD-Link earlier. If you have a JD-Link capable machine with a 4G MTG that has JD-Link turned on, You can send it wirelessly, so you can go in into the display and just hit install setup file. Anything older or that is out of date, you'll have to do a manual transfer. So, but today we'll do create without sending. So you can see it's building our file now. Once this file's done building, we'll put it on a USB and show you how to do that. So you can see it quit saying building down there. Now we can press go to files. Okay, and right there at the top, we have our virtual class file. Here's the client farm field, our setup type. So what I like to do is click it and hit download and go to John Deere Data Manager. So if you don't, I'll back up here. If you don't have John Deere Data Manager, it is right here. So you click on this and it'll prompt you to download. And that is kind of the tool we use to get data in and out. So, but we'll hit download, go John Deere Data Manager. You can see it popped up down here. And it is right here is where it's asking us, where do we want to send it? So we'll go browse, USB drive, hit select, and then hit transfer. And it is that simple. So now it is on your USB. You are ready to go take it to any of your displays and upload it. So now in reverse, if we wanted to upload data to Operations Center, we can go in, open up our data manager, and this is what it would look like when you see it. You can choose where you want to go from. Browse, we'll go back to our USB drive D. Select the folder. There's our setup file from earlier. And you can drop or hit the drop down for your organization. One thing to note, when you have Data Manager open, it will not recognize your organization unless you have Operations Center open in the background. So make sure you're logged in Operations Center, you're on your home page in the background, and it'll pull up and have your organization there. Once you choose your organization, you can choose what files you want. So obviously we just have setup here. If we had a bunch of documentation data, it would fill this up, and it takes different lengths depending on how full your file is. So say if you're pulling data off a sprayer where you have 10,000 acres of documentation in there, it's going to take a little while to upload. So if you do have one like that, click it, hit upload, walk away from it for a couple hours and come back to it. So that's going to be the best thing to do. But if you want to check it, we can hit select organization and hit upload. So that is one thing you could do. So with that, anybody have any questions?